Thank you very much, Luciana. Thank you, Rob, for the kind invitation of being here. It's a pleasure to be here today to present some of the work we are doing in a few minutes. So let me start first looking at what is the current status. As correctly has been mentioned by many of you, food loss and waste is a global problem and is a pressing challenge for efficient and sustainable agri-food systems and for achieving food security and nutrition for all. And reducing food loss and waste represents a triple win opportunity with immediate climate benefits and increased availability of nutritious foods while improving the overall sustainability of the agri-food systems. 81 out of 117 countries, 70% that prioritize that came to the Food System Summit and are doing the transformation pathways, prioritize the reduction of food loss and waste in the national pathways documents that were prepared during the summit. That shows how important it is for countries. And reducing food loss and waste is ensuring in Sustainable Development Goal, as Rob mentioned, 12.3, that seeks to reduce to a half food losses by 2030. But again, food losses and waste, of course. But it is important to understand where we are and why this is so important. So let me first start with the mention that zero hunger means not only feeding 8 billion people, but also nourishing 8 billion people and counting. And these numbers are the latest numbers from the SOFI report that tell us that we are far from it. We have 128 million people on chronic undernourished, 3.1 billion people that don't have access to healthy diets. And if we go in more detail, we see significant problems in children, in millions of stunted children, wasted children, millions of overweight, which means bad quality of diet, and significant rates of mortality for children under 5. But also we are seeing nutrition deficiencies, vitamin A deficiency affecting 500,000 childhood, folic acid deficiencies, and iron deficiencies. So the challenge is huge. And that's why it doesn't make any sense that given this photograph, we have the levels of losses and waste that I will detail later, and that some of it has been already mentioned. It doesn't make any sense because we have to change the way we do things. And of course, it's not easy. Nobody's saying that you reduce automatically food loss and waste and you resolve this problem. There is a lot that will have to go in the middle, no matter how much you reduce food loss and waste, but that's important. But the first thing is to understand the normative part. And that's why there was a huge effort to be able in the SOFA publication, the State of Food and Agriculture in 2019, to come up with a concrete definition so that we are all talking about the same thing. And that's where we define food loss, which is the decrease in the quantity or quality of food resulting from a decision and actions by food suppliers in the chain, excluding retail, food service providers, and consumers. And food waste, which is the decrease in the quantity or quality of food resulting from the decision and actions by retailers, food service, and consumers. Therefore, food loss goes up to wholesale included, and food waste goes from retailer forward. It's important that we keep the definition because the solutions and the policy implications are different. Therefore, we need to be very careful on this, and we keep repeating this because it's the only way we can move forward in a solid agenda of research and policy change. Now, as I mentioned, 828 million people across the globe are hungry, and 3.1 billion people don't have access to healthy diet. At the same time, FAO most recent estimates, this is an update for 2022, we just finished this, said the global food loss percentage is 13.2%. This means this globally more than 13% of food is lost in the supply chain after harvest, up to, but not including retail. This is valued at around $400 billion lost annually. This is a little very marginal improvement with the previous number, which was 13.7, but it's something very important to look at the recent number. With regards to food waste, the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, publishes the Food Waste Index for the first time in 2021. And it estimated 70%, as I have mentioned, and this is extremely important, 11% corresponds to households, 5% to services, and 2% to retail. So it's really important to have clarity on the numbers. But also, it's important to understand the agri-food systems is one of the key contributors to emissions, and it accounts for 31% of the total anthropogenic emissions. Pre- and post-production processes that include the manufacturing of fertilizers, food processing, and packaging are part of this package. And we know that if we reduce food loss and waste, if we eliminate it, it will be important in terms of emissions because of about 10 to 8% of the greenhouse emissions are because of food loss and waste. So a lot of space to work here and a lot of work that we can do in this respect. Now, let me go a little bit more in detail regarding the numbers that I was mentioning. The high levels of food loss at 19.9% occurs in sub-Saharan Africa, and the lowest level is reported in Europe and North America at 9.2%. Food losses percentage in East and Southeastern Asia were estimated at 14.5%, whereas in both Oceania, excluding Australia, and New Zealand, losses are 12.4%, and in North Africa and West Asia, food losses were 14.2%. So food loss percentages in Australia and New Zealand were estimated to be 13.9%, in Central and Southern Asia, 12.6%, and in Latin America and Caribbean, around 14.5%. Our new estimate, of course, is smaller than what it was before, but not statistically different at this point. So we need to be careful. There could be a slight improvement, but still, the improvement needs to be significantly higher. And this is just to show the distribution by region that I has already explained. Now, let me look at the sector where this is happening. And the highest losses occur in the fruits and vegetable group at 31.15%, according to our 2021-2022 estimates. And this is due to high perishability and few intervention strategies. Lowest losses in cereals and pulses food group at 7.23%, and this could be due to lower perishability and food security crops, so more interventions for losses reduction occur here. So fruits and vegetables, which is the core topic of today, is central. And it's central also because it provides diversity of diets that we need to be able to have access to healthy diets. So if we had a half of the food loss and waste we have today at the same production level, there will be sufficient fruits and vegetables available to cover the recommended intake globally. Of course, the caveat here is that is assuming that we distribute this gain across everybody to be able to target properly to achieve this. But the important thing is just to get an idea of the magnitude. So a half will give us enough of what we need. With an estimated of 1.5 million deaths globally attributable to low fruit and vegetable consumption, this could have an important health and development impact. Of course, just ensuring global availability does not guarantee sufficient human consumption. We need a systems approach that ensures producer livelihoods, equitable distribution, healthy and food environment, and increased consumer preferences for fruits and vegetables, to name a few vegetables influencing fruit and vegetable intake. However, if we don't even have sufficient availability, we can never reach the recommended consumption patterns. Now, as I have been mentioning, food loss and waste impact the whole system. It impacts our environment, it impacts the development and hinders social progress, and it also induces economic losses and reduces return on investment for farmers. So there is a significant potential of returns, what we call the triple win, that we can achieve with the reduction of food loss and waste. Clearly, reducing food loss and waste is a significant lever for broader improvements of our food systems towards improving food security, food safety, quality and sustainability, and increasing efficiency. Even more when we look across different potential interventions, and here we have the target of 2.1 and 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4, you will see that reduced food losses is the one that has the most green areas, meaning they have the minimum trade-offs and the significant improvement in terms of increase of access to healthy diets, in terms of efficient use of our natural resources, and in terms of reduction on impacts on the environment. Now, but the issue is not just a post-harvest problem. And I think our moderator, Luciana, has worked a lot on this topic and looking across the value chain with all the different methodological approaches that they have been implemented with her co-authors. But what is important to understand is that losses could occur on the farm, could occur at the post-harvest, on the storage, could occur on the transportation, in the processing and packaging, and the wholesale and retail. We normally talk a lot about post-harvest and the storage part. But what this table is showing is that this is not necessarily the case. In sub-Saharan Africa, in fruits and vegetables, it's a significant impact on the farm. And that means working also on what is happening in the pre-harvest part, in the planting and the seeds that we're using and how resistant they are. Of course, there is work that still needs to be done in the storage. We have done a literature review with Sadler and other co-authors showing that most of the interventions in the storage have not been properly evaluated, and there is not cost-effectiveness analysis. But a significant work needs to be done. That's why the methodological approach that tries to identify where in the value chain the losses occur and to identify the causes before we think on the intervention, I think is central to be able to achieve that. Now, one more important topic is what are the consequences of our actions? And with David Laborde, we did an exercise for the Food System Summit in which we tried different interventions. And one of those was food loss and waste reduction. And here you see the impacts of reduction in chronic undernourishment, of a reduction of 50% of losses and waste, and also of improvement of access to healthy diets. Of course, intensification of production could have a bigger impact in terms of poverty, of hunger reduction, and access to healthy diets. But what we see here is that food losses has a significant impact and is more cost effective. But the most important thing is the only intervention when we look at different trade-offs of that intervention, meaning trade-offs on land, trade-offs on forestry, trade-offs on energy, trade-offs on chemical, biodiversity, and greenhouse gas emissions. The green color here that goes in the negative side is food loss. It's the only one that for all the different trade-offs that we were able to account had a significant negative impact, meaning that there was an improvement instead of creating negative trade-offs. In the opposite to intensification, that will create significant trade-offs, the blue bars, for example, and therefore we need to cope with those and try to minimize those. So again, it's not only the triple win, it's also the intervention that will reduce the trade-offs, and therefore it brings an idea of how important it is. Now, as it was mentioned in the video, data is central on this. We need to inform the innovation strategies, we need to understand where the losses occur. And all the methodologies being worked by many are essential to identify those. I think IFPRI is doing a huge effort on that. We are also doing a huge effort on that. We need to keep working intensively because we need to measure, as it was mentioned before in the case of waste, but also in the case of losses, to see how effective the interventions are. If we don't have an idea what is the level of losses and where they occur in the value chain, and if they are for quantity or for quality, we won't be able to achieve what we want to achieve. But we also need to bring innovations, and we need to look at different innovations that resolve the problems. So understanding the reasons of why the losses occur is central. And we need to strengthen country capacities to be able to do that. In our experience, one of the major problems that we had was drying technologies for smallholders, for example. Still, there is a challenge. There is a lot of drying technologies for large areas, but not for smallholders. And this is central because if I don't dry properly, no matter I have a storage capacity, I will create aflatoxins, for example, in cereals and will damage my fruits and vegetables. Also, it's important to understand that cooling facilities not necessarily works for all fruits and vegetables. We need to understand the demand side to see what is needed, because many people like to eat fruits and vegetables fresh. And therefore, we can extend the duration, but up to a certain point, because then the demand side won't respond to those type of incentives. So clearly, there are low, high-cost impact interventions that can help hundreds of millions of people to get rid of hunger. We can attract an annual investment of about 40 to 50 billion until 2030 every year, in addition to the investment of the governments. This will help us. And clearly, reduction of food loss and waste, in the work we have done together with CERES and with CEF, we show that food loss and waste is one of those interventions that could be incredible, cost-effective, and therefore is something to look at very closely. Now, FAO places emphasis on sound data and evidence to track the food loss index indicator and to serve as a basis for informing and providing policy support to countries, as well as introduction of context-appropriate, resource-efficient, sustainable technologies and quality. Here we see some examples of source-efficient technologies designed by FAO, like the mobile solar chilling facility for milk collection. We have found that the introduction of plastic crates significantly reduces quantitative and qualitative losses in fresh fruit and vegetables chains. We also introduce simple grain storage technologies and support the improvement of adaptation of technologies to improve safety, quality, and efficiency. We also have understand of the importance of digital technologies. And digital technologies can play a crucial role to accelerate this process. We have developed a series of apps, and we are currently working on an app called the FLAP to measure food loss and waste. We were supposed to come earlier, but still we are working on it so that we can fine-tune it. And IFPRI and Luciana Delgado especially has played a crucial role in helping us on developing this app as part of a project that we have with IFPRI. So there is a lot of opportunities here that could allow us to improve the way we operate, could allow us to use the technology and the digital technologies as a mean. It's not necessarily the solution. It's a mean to bring information, it's a mean to identify the problems and to try to resolve the problems and to bring solutions to farmers so that they can choose within a menu of options that can resolve the specific problem they have to. So again, it's really important not only to look at the supply side, but also to look at the demand side. If we don't identify properly where losses occur, where waste is occurring, where the hotspots, then we can bring solutions, but they won't have any impact. And that's why it's so important to have the best possible data to achieve that. Finally, the platform that we have in place, together with IFPRI for the G20, brings a lot of knowledge and sharing of technical exchange and prioritize food loss and waste. We have developed a code of conduct to reduce food loss and waste that we will be empowering across countries. It's a voluntary code of conduct, but I think there is a lot of opportunities where we can keep improving and working together. So thank you so much again, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you.